an absolutely amazing reading year in 2024. Not only did I come across some of my favorite characters of all time during this year, but I came across some of my favorite series and some absolutely amazing writers that I had not read before. So today I'm going to give you my top 10 books that I read in 2024. I have made it a goal for 2025 to post on this channel more instead of just posting on TikTok with the things that are going on over there. So hopefully you will like and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss any of the book content that I've been posting elsewhere. So I debated about this for a long time. I did an honorable mention and then my top 12 short list over on TikTok, and I have debated with myself over the last few weeks and finally narrowed down to my top 10 books that I read in 2024 out of the over 90 books that I read this year. It was an amazing year. I usually only read about 40 to 50 books a year, so this was an absolutely amazing year. Coming in at number 10 is Tender as the Flesh. I am not normally a huge horror reader. I am a scaredy cat. There are books that I will not read, like as an animal lover, you will never catch me reading Pet Sematary, although I love some other Stephen King things. But I saw so many interesting reviews of this book that I decided to pick it up, and I'm really glad that I did. This is a gory story. We are in a world where people can't eat animal meat anymore, and so they have resorted to cannibalism. So they're eating special meat. What unfolds in this story is we follow a man who works at a former meat packing plant that is now a special meat packing plant. And so I would definitely check the trigger warnings for this because there is a lot of gory descriptions of how these things happen and how the humans that are going to be used for food are treated, and it is absolutely abhorrent. There were a couple of times I had to put the book down because I needed a minute to kind of overcome some of the things that were going on. But the ending to this book, I don't want to give anything away because I want you to read it if you can handle the horror here, but the ending just absolutely blew me away. I had to go back and reread the last chapter of this book 3 to 4 times. I've gone back since then and read the final chapter 3 or 4 more times just to absorb what it was that I read, sort of take that in and really understand that I read what I read. So the ending here is very shocking. I highly recommend that you pick this up. It is absolutely fantastic. I read it in 2 sittings and cannot recommend it enough. Coming in at number 9, I am going to cheat just slightly, and I am throwing in a duology here, and that is A Psalm for the Wild-Built and A Prayer for the Crown-Shy. This duology by Becky Chambers just lives in my head rent-free. I think about it all the time. If you are a fan of Nietzsche or you have kind of any existential viewpoints at all, this will be right up your alley. And if you don't, it is still a really, really great study in humanity and purpose. So in both books, we are following Monk and Robot, and Monk, the people and the robots in this world do not interact. They used to, and then the robots kind of revolted and said, we don't want to work for you for our whole lives. That's not what our purpose is. And so everyone agreed to split, and in the last couple 100 years, there's been no contact. And the monk and the robot had their first contact in A Psalm for the Wild-Built. And I think it's really interesting how that sort of world was created and the differences between humans and robots and the level of technology that exists or doesn't exist. So in A Psalm for the Wild-Built, Monk is really searching for his purpose. He doesn't really know what he's supposed to be doing in life, and that's when he runs into Robot and they have a little adventure. Then in the prayer for the crown shy, we sort of flip the narrative on its head, and Robot comes and joins Monk in his world, and he is seeking to an answer to the question, what do humans need? Which of course is a very loaded question, and I think in these two very, very short books, Becky Chambers did an absolutely fantastic job of analyzing what is purpose, what is it that we should be doing with our lives, what is meaningful, what is not, and what do humans need. I will continue to reread these books for the rest of my life because I just found them so incredibly impactful and thought-provoking. At number 8 is the only nonfiction on this year's book list. I did read quite a bit of nonfiction this year, but this is the only one that made the top 10. This is Madame Restell, and this is a story of her life as the most famous abortionist in New York City in the late 1800s. And while this reads like fiction, it is true. And I think that Jennifer Wright did a really great job of making her story accessible, understandable, really driving the point home that she's trying to make about the difficulties that abortionists face, the difficulty that women faced, the difficulty that families faced, the laws surrounding abortion. And I found it so poignant because it echoes so much of what's going on in today's society, and was very eye-opening. I think this should be required reading because it was so impactful, and this is something again that I will continue to read and reread as I learn more about the struggles that women have gone through and women's rights. I think I had a little bit of an interesting perspective on this because when I was in college many years ago, I actually spent a semester studying women's literature from this time on women's rights. So reading things like about Hull House and the women's suffrage movement and all of the things that were going on there. So I kind of already had a background going into this with some things that were going on outside of what's going on in this story. You do not need any background to jump in and learn all about Madame Restell and the work that she did. And again, I think it should just be required reading. Coming in at number 7, and quite a shock that this book ended up so low on the top 10, but I just read so many good books this year, and that is M.L. Wong's The Sword of Kaigen. Not only did I love the story and love the characters in the story, but if we get down to a little bit more of a technical level, I love that M.L. Wong took the hero's journey and really just kind of threw it out the window. She gives us the hero's journey in the first third of the book, and then she just upends everything and gives us the heroine's journey. And that is what I think was so powerful about this book, is that we are really seeing a different kind of story. We're seeing a story that truly reflects the woman and mother that is at the center of this story. The battle scenes are fantastic. The world is amazing. This book has my favorite new weapon of all time, which is an ice dragon. As soon as I figure out how to make one, I will let you guys know. Of course, that's not gonna happen. But I really, really enjoyed the way that the story was built technically to pull me in, draw me in, and really make me focus on the mother's story that was going on here. This book broke my heart, and I can't wait to reread it again. What number are we on now? 6. Coming in at number 6 is a book that has won many awards this year, and that is James by Percival Everett. This book deserves all of the accolades that it has been given. The writing is stunningly beautiful. It reads kind of like pastoral poetry almost, in a way. The way that Everett has strung words together is just phenomenal. The story itself is a retelling of Huck Finn from the perspective of Jim the slave, and we really get into what Jim's life was like here. We see Huck Finn, we see the Huck Finn story throughout about the first third of the book, but from Jim's perspective, and then it really divulges from that original story into being just Jim's story. And I would argue that Jim's story is not just the story of Jim himself, but the story of all of the slaves that were in the United States or around the world at the time. There's some really interesting commentary here on learning and language and wisdom and humanity, and you're rooting for Jim this whole time. And when I read Huck Finn, I loved the character of Jim. As James, I am rooting for him. I more understand him. I understand the plight that he's going through and the struggles that he and other slaves faced. And I would argue that James is much better than the original, actually. By the end of this book, I wanted to jump out of my chair, throw my hands in the air, and just scream for James, because while the story is heartbreaking, it is also uplifting in parts and very well worth the read. I read this one again in 2 seconds. Coming in at number 5 is The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. I expected to like this book, but I really did not expect to love this book. I thought the concept was very interesting, but this ended up being something well beyond what I expected. All of the magic in this world, which is really just today's world for the most part, is contained in books. And those books have both good and bad qualities for the magic. They can be used to do positive things, they can be used to do negative things and be very, very hurtful. There's only so many books, and so there are book hunters that will do anything to get a hold of these books and sell them for millions and millions of dollars. We follow a barista, Amazon guy not respecting, trying to make videos here. And the dogs go crazy. There are 5 of them, so when they go crazy for the Amazon guy, it gets pretty loud. So the barista that we are following stumbles on to being given one of these books, the Book of Doors. And the cool thing about the Book of Doors is that it makes any door the door to anywhere else. As long as she can picture that other door, she can walk through to any point in the, time, any point in space. So she can go through her closet door and end up in Italy. And what unfolds in this story is really the hunt for the books, how the books came to be, the librarian who is trying to keep all of these books safe, and why he is trying to keep all those books safe. The characters are amazing. There is great action in here. There's just this beautifully built magic system, and I think that Gareth Brown did a really great job of thinking about what would actually the reaction be if these magic items existed in today's world. Absolutely wonderful story. Definitely pick it up. I mean, pick all of these up. I keep saying that, but that's... At number 4 is Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong. I know that we've already seen her in this list. I know a lot of people have a rule that they don't put the same author twice in their top 10, but this is well deserved. Blood Over Brighthaven is a story of feminine rage. It is a story of colonialism and capitalism and how the things that can happen when these things run incredibly rampant and unchecked. The magic system here is really unique. We're dropped into a world where there's kind of an outer and a city, and the city is where the people want to be or live. At least that's what we're told, and it is very much kind of your typical big city. the magic system is based on reaching out into an area that has supposedly been given to them by God and pulling energy to make this magic happen. And the magic makes everything work, makes the trains run, it makes the water hot, it makes the cars go, it builds everything. So magic literally is the foundation of the entire system of capitalism that is going on in this world. And then we have this group of people that is the other. I would liken them to native populations from anywhere around the world, whether we're talking about like Native Americans or Palestinians or Maori or any of the other people that we've heard about or have not heard about in the news lately, that are native populations that are deemed as other, less than, savage, unintelligent. And these people are the servants. They're not really slaves, they're servants, but they might as well be slaves for the way that they are treated. They live in poverty. They just don't have, as the native people to this city do. So very, very intense debate here on capitalism and colonialism going on in this book. The woman that we follow in the story is the first woman to make it to the highest level of magicians in the book. And then there's a lot of commentary there on, male versus female when it comes to leadership roles, when it comes to making tough decisions, when it comes to understanding the way that life works. And we run into just massive amounts of feminine rage, and I am here for every minute of it. The way that this story unfolds, the way that it is told is absolutely beautiful. I think, again, Emma Wong is giving us a heroine's journey instead of a hero's journey, although this one is a little bit more of a traditional storyline. But we're very much definitely understanding the female point of view here, the other point of view. And I think that these fantasy books that are making this very obvious commentary on the way that the world is, I think are absolutely fascinating, and I love them so much. I would put this one up next to Babel and be perfectly happy with that comparison, although I don't think this one reaches quite that level, but very, very close. At number 3 is Project Hmary by Andy Weir. I didn't pick this book up for so long because people had told me that there was a lot of science in it, and that really scared me. And then a really good friend of mine sent this to me, and some other people suggested to listen to the audiobook. So I did an immersive read for this, and I read and listened to the audiobook. I cannot recommend the audiobook enough. So first, to answer the question, is this too sciencey? It is very sciencey, but Andy Weir really wrote this in a way that is accessible. And even for someone who doesn't understand a lot of science, I felt like I was a part of the conversation. I did not feel left out of the science elements of this book. This is the first Andy Weir that I have read. I have seen the movie The Martian, and I do plan on reading everything that he's ever written after reading this book. But again, I do recommend that you listen to it because we have an alien life form in this book, Rocky. And Rocky's kind of like a giant spider alien, but his language is musical. And so that makes it, when you hear this on the audiobook, it just immerses you in the story so much more. So we are following our main character in this book who the world is dying because of some alien life form amoeba type thing, and he goes to space to try to figure out why this amoeba type thing is making the sun dim, which will eventually kill off all life on Earth. So he ends up in space all by himself because the rest of the crew dies, and this is where he runs into Rocky, who is also on the same exact quest for his planet. There are all kinds of things that happen to them Their friendship is absolutely amazing. The ending, while I'll say not tremendously surprising, was extraordinarily satisfying, and I cannot recommend this book enough. Coming in at number 2 for 2024, I am cheating again, and I am adding an entire series in the place of number 2, and that is the Murderbot Diaries. I stumbled on this series completely by accident because I was looking at the Audible free tier and seeing what was available, and the first book popped up. I thought, oh, that sounds interesting, and it's not very long. So I listened to it and then immediately listened to the entire rest of the series without any kind of break between them because it was just so amazing. Murderbot has to be one of my favorite characters in literature of all time now. He is a robot that has been created specifically for the purposes of security, murder, following the rules and orders of the people that own him. However, Murderbot has hacked his own governor system and now has his own will, and what he really wants to do in life is watch television, watch serial shows, with TV shows, soap operas. That's what he wants to do with life. And instead he constantly gets roped into saving humans and fighting, against these big corporations and the bad guys. And I just cannot recommend this series enough. It is highly addicting. Most of the books are small novellas, although there were 2 that were longer novel length books. I do not have any of them physically because I started listening to them on audio, and I think the first 4 books were on Audible for free on the plan, and I wasn't willing to stop there. Murderbot is absolutely amazing. I think I'm going to do a complete reread and buy the books in 2025 and read through each one of those again with a completely different experience. But if you like humor, if you like science fiction, definitely pick up this series. It is stunning. And then for the number 1 book that I read in 2024, that is going to be The Will of the Many. On paper, this book should not work. It is a dark academia, sci-fi, high fantasy, and it incorporates all of the tropes from those genres. We have an orphan who is fighting to stay alive, fighting for money, who is adopted by someone really high up in government, who is then sent to this magic school to learn magic, to try to, solve the problems of the world. On paper, it doesn't work. On paper, it's tropey, it's too predictable. But this book grabs you from page 1 and doesn't let go and doesn't relent until you reach the end. And once you reach the end of the book, it still doesn't let you go. The last bit of this book just wraps itself around your brain, wraps itself around your heart, and will just continue to tug and pull at them. And I imagine that I will continue to reread this book until the next one comes out. I've read it twice, and I'm currently listening to the audiobook for a 3rd time with my husband because I told him, he's not a reader, and I was like, you have to for this one because I want to talk about it. So we follow Vis, and Vis, again, an amazing character. He is from a royal family. They have been wiped out pretty much by the government at the time, and he's an orphan. He is basically cage fighting to earn money so that he can continue to run away from the powers that be, and then he is adopted and goes to this school. This is kind of part Hunger Games, part Maze Runner. There's so many things in this book. It just does not let go. And the magic system is also really, really interesting, and I think makes a lot of political commentary as well, because the magic system is all based on pulling will from other people. So the higher up that you go in this system, the higher your ranking, the more will that you pull from other people. The lower that you are in this system, the more will that you have to give. So the people, you know, at the bottom are ceding half of their motivation, their life force, their will on and on and on up the chain. And it's just, the magic system is just heartbreaking, but it is incredibly unique. Book 2 doesn't come out till sometime in 2025. I'm not sure what the release date is. Last time I looked, there wasn't a specific release date, and they have since changed the cover. I don't know that I'm gonna buy the new cover, because while I do like everything to match, I really, really like this cover. But I just cannot wait for the next book in the Hierarchy series. This is the first book that I've read from James Islington, and I do have in my plans sometime in the near future to read more of his, because I know he's written other series that are also really, really amazing. So that was my top 10 books that I've read in 2024. I do hope that you will like this video and subscribe, because like I said, in 2025, I am going to be posting a whole lot more books about videos, and you know, a whole lot more videos about what I've been reading, what I've been doing, what I've been writing, you know, and some other maybe lifestyle type things. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I would love to have you along for the journey, because I love talking to people about books. So leave me a comment and let me know what were your number 1 and number 2 books that you read for this year, as I am making my list for 2025. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.